Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Watch. Today I want to talk about The Witch Part 1, The Subversion, of which there is an image over my shoulder, because I don't have this in my collection. I watched it streaming, which I don't usually do for full-length feature films. I tend to do that for like the streaming shows, but this was something I really wanted to watch, so I just streamed it. It was easier. The plot goes thusly. Opening montage, the opening credits, there's like scientists perform medical experiments, sometimes on kids. Once the credits are done, there's a scene of like a scientific facility that's basically covered in blood and bodies, which is interesting. They cut back and forth between that scene and like a young child running through the forest, and she's got like blood all over her face and stuff. So obviously something happened. This girl escaped. And like the people in charge are gonna try and hunt her down, but they figure she won't survive on her own without them, hinting that there's some reason that they expect her to die on her own. And then the scene is like the next morning. There's a guy, like an older guy, out in his field feeding his cows, and he sees something off in the grass, and it's this little girl. Calls to his wife, and then it cuts to 10 years later. She's like an 18-year-old teenager in school. She's like the sweet, doesn't seem to have any memory of what happened before. She was, these older couple adopted her. She doesn't have any memory of what happened before. She's trying to help out her adopted parents. They're struggling financially. Her mother is starting to have dementia, or maybe Alzheimer's. I'm not sure if don't remember if they clearly state if it's dementia or Alzheimer's, but she's clearly having memory problems. And so to help out, she enters this like South Korea's Got Talent thing. It's like this televised talent show where she goes up on stage and sings. And she is recognized by the people who were originally hunting her, who assumed she had died years ago. And the story kind of goes, that's like the basic opening, like 15, 20 minutes of the film, I guess. So not giving away too much of the plot, but you can figure out, if you're recognized on television by people who might be hunting you, that's probably not a good thing. You could probably assume where the story kind of goes from there. And you'd be right about a lot of that. I just don't want to give away. There's some nice twists that I enjoyed. I kind of wanted to watch this movie because it came across my YouTube feed, like a clip of it. I was like, that looks kind of interesting. Can I get it on Amazon Prime? And yes, I can. I didn't, normally I would buy the film, but because this is a South Korean import, I've had some experiences like buying DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff where because it's an import, I can't play it. It's like, I can't play it on my American machine because it's coded for for foreign machines. I've had a couple of films like that. So it's that's why I didn't buy this first. That's why I only streamed it. I really, really liked the story, which it wasn't as action-oriented as the clip I saw on YouTube made me think. I thought it was like a heavy action film. It wasn't. It was very it's very much story-driven, which kind of surprised me, and it kept me interested. What kept me interested was, what's the girl's name? I can't remember. I read the article to prep myself, and then I completely spaced out. But the girl's name, Jun Yoon. I'm not gonna try. Whatever, the girl, the witch. I thought the actress who did this did an amazing job. She's this apparently sweet young woman, helpful, friendly, compassionate, just wanting to be a nice person and help people. And when these people show up and start telling her that she's, not, that she's, this escaped person, she's shaken, she's rattled, she's upset. The interactions with her and her adoptive parents, the acting for those three characters was just amazing. It really even though I did it in subtitles, and I couldn't understand what they were saying, the facial expressions, these people are good actors. I really, really enjoyed it, that part of the story, and also wanting to see how the story unfolded. Some of the problems I had, the subtitling was not always good. Sometimes it was, especially in like high emotion scenes. In the scene where the older farmer finds the girl in the field, the subtitling was like, "Oh gosh, this is terrible, honey, honey. Oh, this is terrible." It's like, no, I mean, and he was like shouting and like you could tell in his voice and his facial expressions, he was like very, very upset, and the tone of the subtitles was just awful. Um, Other times it was on point, but yeah, there were times when the subtitling was just, no, it was bad. Acting was great, subtitling not so good all the time. The other criticism I had was that the villains in the film, the bad guys, the antagonists, a lot of them were very two-dimensional, or no, very one-dimensional, not even two-dimensional. They were very, sometimes almost caricatures, which to a certain degree kind of makes sense. Because as I was watching the film, I noticed that how it was directed, how it was lit, how the scenes were blocked off and edited, looked like an anime. I mean, I don't think this is based on an anime. I think it's an original film. I don't know. I could be wrong. But am I looking into it on like articles and stuff and reading about it and trying to get set up for this video, I didn't see anything that it was written that it was based on a manga or anything. So I don't think it was. But again, like I said, you could like take this, hand draw all the scenes, and not change anything and play it, and it would look like a Japanese anime. This is kind of like this is like a Japanese anime done in live action, which kind of impressed me too. I didn't notice it all the time, but there were definite scenes where you're like, no, this is just an anime, and maybe it's because I don't know. I have watched some Asian films, some old Japanese samurai films, kung fu martial arts films I loved growing up. They don't look like anime. They're not filmed that way. This was blocked, edited, shot, and lit like an anime. And it's also one of those things where, unless you're really familiar with the genre, I don't know if you'd notice. I just found it kind of cool that I would look at a scene and it's like, yep, anime shot. So yeah, the villains, but that being an anime also makes sense that the villains were cartoonish, so it kind of feeds into that. Their lines were just like the kind of lines you'd expect from a cartoonish villain in an anime. The other thing was that she has a best friend. They go to school together. Her best friend spends a fair amount of time with her during the course of the film, especially the early parts of the film. And she was obnoxious. Oh, I couldn't stand her. She was selfish and bratty. It's like, why are you best friends with this girl? She's, you're so nice, and she's so spoiled and selfish. Why are you friends with this girl? But it didn't really make me hate the film. It didn't, if you kind of get the feeling that this is a small town that they live in, kind of you get the impression like everyone knows everyone. From like you see the people interactions aside from, the girl, her adopted parents, and her best friend. You see other people in the town too. Not many, a few, but it makes it feel like a small town. Like kind of everybody knows each other. So maybe not. She didn't have a lot of friends, people to be friends with. But I just really, really, I liked the film. I just thought it was a good story, even though it was somewhat, predictable from its standpoint and from, the way the story fed out. And you watch enough movies, you know all the tropes. I've watched a lot of movies. I know a lot of the tropes, but it wasn't too predictable. Part of that was what kept me interested. Yes, I kind of saw where the story was going, but there were things like, oh, yeah, didn't kind of see that coming. not too many of those. There's a few, but a lot of it was for me. You know, you have this girl who says she doesn't remember what happened to her before. What kept me going is I wanted to find out where that went. Would she remember? What would happen when she did? You know, so I wasn't sure, and they kept hinting things and hinting things, and the more they hinted, it's like, okay, what's the next hint? What's the next thing? You can tell I've been babbling for 10 minutes. You can tell that I really like the film if I'm babbling this long. I could probably go on longer, but I don't want to spoil more of the story. I know I try and keep things vague to try and avoid spoiling things, because I always hate when people spoil things for me. So I do try to keep my comments to the actual content of the story, game, film, whatever, to a minimum. I'd give this film not an A+, because of the things that I don't agree with. I'd have to give it an A-. Give it an A-. It's a solid film, and again, if you're going into it, realize that it's a story-driven film with only a few action scenes, and they're more towards the end of the film. There aren't that many. Action scenes are good, they're entertaining, but the trailers and stuff that I saw made me think this was going to be a heavy action film, and it's not. It's there's a lot of story about the girl and the people trying to find her and trying to push her into revealing that she is the escaped girl from 10 years ago. Keeping that in mind, if this sounds interesting, I would definitely recommend it. I hope it sounds interesting to you. Give it a watch. It's on if you got Amazon Prime, it's free. And it's a well-made film. Definitely a well-made film. There is a sequel, which I have not watched yet. I'm going to have to at some point, but I've got a huge watch list. That between the books I have to read, the video games I'm playing, and I have too much to do, and there's not enough time in a day. If, as always, thanks for watching. If you like my videos, if you want to torture yourself more, I have other stuff to watch. You go back to my channel and torture yourself some more. And until next time, good hunting.